After Roe v. Wade was struck down a year and a half ago, I can't believe it's been a year and a half, in Alabama, state legislators are hoping to pass a bill that would give immunity to IVF clinics and patients after the state Supreme Court there ruled that frozen embryos are children. The governor of Alabama said she anticipates a bill on her desk shortly. Hundreds of families are expected to rally today at the state capitol in support of IVF and to pressure lawmakers to act. Yesterday, the U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary met with women affected by the ruling in Alabama. Here is what he had to say.
We're trying to figure out at the federal level what we can continue to do to try to be supportive of people who want to access their health care rights. I think it's become pretty clear that this isn't just about abortion.
Wow, if you recognize the woman sitting next to him, that was Liz Goldman, who was on our show. If you guys watched our Medical Miracle show on Friday, she was the one that had the uterus transplant, and she herself, now her whole IVF journey is now stalled. Her second child is now stalled. Erica, how do you feel? Because you've been honest about your IVF journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's very important that we recognize it's been stalled for her because her uterus needs to be removed, and that's an imminent situation.
So it's a health issue for her as well.
And there's a lot of other women who are falling under this imminent health situation as well because IVF journeys or IVF procedures have been halted. You have people who have been in the middle of theirs, so they've started their stems, which means that their follicles are growing. They are all of their eggs are going into the follicle in order to be extracted. And now what do? This isn't just a women's issue. This is a family planning issue. It's also not just about people in Alabama. Keep in mind, if you are struggling with fertility issues in other states, I would be keeping an eye on this because this can also delay or halt your IVF journey as well. Where are all of these embryos from Alabama supposed to go? Where are all of these patients from Alabama supposed to go? There is going to be a backlog and an overload in other states. I mean, it's so infuriating because it's seemingly so unnecessary. Like, people are out here playing God, doctor, and science with information that they don't even know what they're talking about clearly. If I have X amount of embryos and I'm not benefiting from being able to claim those embryos as dependents, but I have had to, and my family has had to make sure that we have the money to pay for these procedures and to pay for these embryos to be stored, but we don't get any benefit from that. The state is not coming in, the government's not coming in and saying, we are going to help you with this journey. Even if you have, and you're lucky enough to have health care that's going to subsidize it in some way, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be 100% subsidized. And we're talking about college tuition for each time that you do this. So I don't know who and what dude decided that they wanted to play in this, but it's very interesting to me because when we were talking about abortion, everyone thought that this was going to be like a, underserved community issue. Now we're talking about IVF, which clearly are people either who have of certain means or their community has been generous enough to rally around them in order to make sure that their dream of having a child comes to fruition.
Well said.
So it's like, it's so gross. It is so disgusting to me. I don't even know what else to say about it because it just seems like people are getting into not only your uterus, not only your ability to family plan. Men, keep in mind too, like, you have a situation where your embryos means that it's two of you. It's not just the eggs.
Right.
They're coming for your embryos. So what happens if there's something that happens within your family that changes the dynamic? Do you want someone telling you that this embryo that you created with another person is now, like, you're liable for what? I mean, are we talking jail time? What is it? Because it can't just be the woman. It's crazy to me.
It is. Really quick, legally, this is all chaos, right? I have 2 embryos, and whatever I do with them, there's all these things, I don't know, there's a lot to say here, but legally I had other embryos that weren't viable because of things like Gaucher's disease that my mother had genetically. Does that mean that unviable embryos now are considered children, even though they wouldn't survive outside of that? Science is missing all over this. They clearly don't know what they're talking about. I want to quote Chief Justice Tom Parker in Alabama about the concurring opinion. He said, a human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God who views the destruction of his image as an affront to himself. This is not a scientific issue. This is a constitutional issue, and this has crossed a line.
It also seems like there's some separation of church and state issues there.
We don't live in a theocracy. I can't say this over and over and again, and they kept saying this is God's image and God's image. God, with all due respect, needs to be kept out of this conversation, as well as, I'm sorry, Mr. Old Man in the middle of my gynecologist's appointment. This will rouse women. It will rouse men because sperm's involved now, y'all. Your first time being regulated with a body. We're used to it. Y'all should realize this is a losing issue for the voting. It will galvanize a bloc no one has ever thought of. So, very bad idea.
Do you think that this will, you said very bad idea, so do you think that this will impact the polls? At the end of the day, will this impact the polls?
I think so. I really do. I hate that we have 30 seconds.
I know, I'm so sorry.
I know. It's just too much. I'll talk about it on the break a little bit more. I have way too much to say to just throw a statement out there, because abortion's a serious issue. But to answer your question, absolutely, it will, because they've gone too far on this one. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.